I'm delighted to say, entering stage left during the middle of the disaster.
And did you notice how I brilliantly wasn't put off by the fact that Jonathan Pryce walked in the middle of that? I just pretended like nothing was happening.
Jonathan Pryce,
Hello.
good afternoon.
Hello.
How are you, sir?
I'm very well, thanks. Yeah.
I'm a little bit nervous
Why?
about what has just happened next door. As part of my preparation for you coming in on the show, apart from seeing the movie and reminding myself of all my favourite Jonathan Pryce performances, I read a Q&A that you did, a question and answer session, and one of the questions was...
He's 5 paces ahead of you already.
Which person do you despise the most in the world?
Yeah, and he just walked past me.
And for various sort of BBC programming reasons, you've just shared a green room with Tony Blair, who was the answer to your "Who do you despise most in the world?" And
Luckily, he was surrounded by security men, so I couldn't get to say hello to him.
But you would have enjoyed saying hello if you'd had... I'm sure he'd have loved to talk to you.
Yeah, I'm sure he would.
Anyway, so all I can say is that thank you very much for joining us on the show. On the show, and you never know who you're going to bump into.
No.
If you're here, and Jonathan is here because The Man Who Invented Christmas is new. Jonathan plays John Dickens, Charles Dickens' father. Just explain the setup and the idea and where you fit in with this tale, John.
Well, it's quite a simple story, which I think they tell very well, and honours Dickens, who is a great storyteller. It's ostensibly how he came to write A Christmas Carol out of desperation. He was broke, he didn't know what to write about, but he took inspiration for the characters in the story from the people in his life and the people he met on the street. And I think it's a great family film. It doesn't pretend to be any sort of great in-depth look at Dickens, which I'm sure you'll talk about later when I've gone. But
we'll do it to your face, I think.
Are you going to say it to my face?
Oh, I don't know. Mark will be in charge of...
I got a review for my role as I played John Dickens, and I read the American reviews in the Washington Post. I got my first Jonathan Pryce is quite good. So
put it on the poster.
Yeah, I smell Oscars.
And John Dickens is a very important. I mean, a lot of people will know this anyway because they know their Dickens, but the character of his father and what the family went through, and the fact his father went to a debtor's prison because he owed £40,
and he took the family with him. Yeah,
is so important in the creation of what Charles Dickens became.
Yeah, it created a great degree of social awareness in him, and his regard for the poor and for people who lived in poverty, and it's that comes out in all of his books, really.
Yeah.
In some respect.
And John Dickens, Mr. Micawber in David Copperfield is supposed to have been based on his father, and I think don't you say in the movie something will turn up?
If I didn't, I should have done something.
But that
I probably forgot to say.
That kind of hopeful expectation is John Dickens, isn't
it?
Yes, it's fine. I know I've been spending my money way too much, but he's a beautiful character.
Yeah. He's a spendthrift and an old ham. Silence followed. But how did I get that part?
The old ham thing being important because when we first see him, he's kind of entertaining. He's a kind of magician's air, and there is something about him that, quite apart from everything else that we learn about his influence on his son, is that you get the sense of the showman. You get the sense of that's where the storytelling element comes.
Yeah, absolutely. And as much as Charles kind of, I wouldn't say hated his father, but just wanted him out of his life. As much as that is part of the story, that also is his great love for him. And there's a great, towards the end of the film.
No, you can't. I'm just holding up the don't spoil. I mean, I think everybody knows how.
I don't think. I think you can talk about the Christmas Carol without
fine.
spoiling the ending.
Okay, you go ahead. Yes, there is a great moment towards the end.
No, but it's the moment between father and son is the reconciliation between the two of them, and I found that particularly telling. That as a father of 3 children, I want my children to go and see this film and learn how they should love and care for their father in their old age. That's the message I take from the film.
Dan Stevens is a more dashing version of Dickens than we've seen previously.
Yeah, well, he must have been a man of extraordinary energy at some point in his life, and I think Dan plays the whole film has great energy, I think, and that's one of the joys of watching it. It moves along at a pace. It's not reverential about Dickens. It tells a story, and it's a great, I think, great family film.
Thank heavens Simon Callow is in there somewhere, because it is the law that if you're going to mention the word Dickens, even as Doctor Who, you have to have Simon Callow.
And Miriam Margolyes.
Who's fantastic. I do love the idea of Dickens living with his characters, and the characters sort of telling him how they would react and giving him a hard time when he gets things wrong.
Well, this is sort of Pirandello thing, isn't there? There's six characters in search of an author. He's being followed around by these people demanding to know, giving him inspiration and saying that wouldn't happen, and this is how that works out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Does it still resonate? Do you think?
The story,
yes.
Oh my, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's about how people learn behaviour, and the Scrooge character is a wonderful character. How he comes round and softens the character in the end, and a great performance by Christopher Plummer. It's extraordinary. I told one journalist I thought it was the best performance in the film, and she thought that made me a very generous, magnanimous person. So I'll say it again. But it's wonderful to watch somebody even older than me he's quite wonderful in the film, I think.
The thing is that the film is taking a story that that we all know inside out and has been done in umpteen different versions, and is having fun with it. It certainly plays very fast and loose with the history, but that's that's how it is. I can imagine it being played on television every Christmas from now until eternity, and I think that's what you meant when you said about it being a family film, that it's something that will play seasonally over and over again.
Yeah, let's hope.
And in defence against the thing about you saying you will be rude about it when I'm gone, absolutely not. I think there are moments in it when I think it tips over into unforgivable schmaltz. I think there are other moments in it when it has great fun with the story. Forgivable schmaltz, yes. And incidentally, I do, I like schmaltz. I think you have great fun with the role of the father. I was not entirely convinced by Dan Stevens as Dickens, just because it seemed to me in the same way as the Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes, that wasn't how I had envisaged him in the past. But you're quite right. Obviously, at some point, he must have been thrusting and vigorous, and but I thought the whole thing romped along with a sense of playful fun, and I can quite imagine it becoming something which is a staple that will be on every Christmas from now.
Great.
And also...
and I said all of that whilst you were here.
Yes, thank you.
Credit to Miles Jupp, who plays William Makepeace Thackeray, who is very, very funny.
There are a couple of moments when did you ever see a film called Charles Dickens' England?
No.
It was just the most terrible documentary, which consisted of Derek Jacobi walking around the streets of London and stumbling. I wonder whether Dickens would have walked down. And over here there is a tombstone which has a name that is slightly similar to a name that he's. I thought there were moments that we tipped into that territory, but then it was pulled back by getting into sort of fantasy romping. And I do like the whole Pirandello thing. I do like the idea of him being pursued by and haunted by his demons.
So while you're here, Jonathan, I do have to mention Terry Gilliam, who's been on this show many times, but as I understand it, the filming has wrapped on his Don Quixote movie.
Yeah,
19 years in the pre-production for 19 years, and you are Don Quixote. Is it all done? It's actually going to happen.
It was all the delays were all designed to wait until I got old enough to play Quixote, and I had the best time I think ever filming in Spain and Portugal, Canary Islands, riding a horse, jousting. Poetry. It was the best, absolutely the best. I think the odd thing is for Terry, he's very pleased with it, and everyone's happy.
I'm not asking this ironically. Is it as good as we want it to be after all this delay? Because I remember watching, Man from La Mancha. I remember the whole thing falling down the first time. I remember how much he had invested in it. Is it, after all this way, is it as good as we want it to be?
No.
Okay, that's a shame. No, seriously.
I've only seen bits of it, and I sincerely hope it is. I mean, it was making it was an extraordinary time, and you could see what was going on around you. And Adam Driver, who now plays the originally the Johnny Depp character, Adam is quite wonderful in it, and he came. He was like a Gilliam virgin, and it's my fourth film with Terry, and I don't think Adam knew quite what had hit him. But he came around in the end, and he got on the team.
There isn't a year goes by that I don't watch Brazil, and I think that film is one of the greatest films ever made. And people can still shout out in our house, "Has anyone seen Sam Lowry?" And I cannot imagine what it must have been like to have been part of something which is such a quintessentially great, British movie that is nothing like what people expect British movies to be.
Yeah, well, personally, it's very rewarding. Of course, when you're making it, you're not aware of you make a film that's going to still be relevant. I'm here 35 years later, whatever. But no, it becomes even more prescient now, and it is a great film. It keeps finding a new audience. I was in New York 2 years ago now, and had a screening in a cinema, full cinema Q&A. The enthusiasm for it was as it ever was, and it's it is very
magnificent.
rewarding.
It's magnificent. You should be nothing but proud of having been involved in it. And I so looking forward to Don Quixote.
Yeah, I think it is going to be great. I know it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
And while you're here, do have to mention, when we started the show, Pope Francis was on the television because he's always in the news, and you are about to be, or you have
started,
been.
Yeah.
You've started. You are the Pope already?
I was in, the past month I've been in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, doing the early life of Bergoglio, and there's a younger Argentinian actor who plays me in earlier times. And I've got a Christmas break now, and I go to Rome after Christmas for my scenes with Tony Hopkins, who plays Ratzinger. And there's
that's amazing. I mean, just
got two Welsh popes there. That's the main thing. One with a dodgy German accent, one with a dodgy Spanish accent. So it's
so this is going to be a Netflix series. So they're obviously
it's a movie.
Oh, it's a movie. Is it a Netflix movie? I thought that they were involved somewhere in the.
The Netflix are producing it. It's their film, but it's being shown in cinemas first, and then will be streamed after that.
What's it like? I mean, I know it is just acting because you have this kind of stuff which comes around every now and again. But being Pope Francis, have you met him? Have you had a?
There's a plan that I will meet him in Rome. Yeah, and it's this is my third Latin American hero. From if you call Perón a hero, I don't know if you call Blair a hero. Perón where is he? He's behind me. No, sorry. And
he is behind you.
Don Quixote is behind me.
Juan Perón is not behind you.
Don Quixote and the Pope. I get to do them all. Yeah.
And do you ever go back and watch Ploughman's Lunch and think, wow? Again, a film which again has almost more relevance now than it ever did before.
Yeah. No, I haven't seen it for a long time.
It really stands up.
Yeah.
And one last thing, Jonathan, while you're here, and then we can send you back into the green room where you can pick up on those finer discussion points with Tony Blair. Is you did a thing which I've watched, which is about reading tweets out loud.
Oh yes.
And you read out a Kanye West tweet about a Persian rug with cherub imagery, which is probably the funniest thing I've heard all year.
Oh, good.
It's absolutely fantastic. I suggest anybody looks that up because it's fantastic.
Good.
Jonathan, thank you very much indeed for coming in. It's December the 1st, so we can say Happy Christmas. You can see Jonathan, who is quite good in Man Who Invented Christmas.
Although Brazil is the best Christmas movie.
Yeah.
It is a Christmas movie.
Yeah.
Is that right?
It is a Christmas movie.
Father Christmas appears.
It does.
Jonathan, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
In.